Hello, welcome back to the channel. This is How Roots Will Travel. My name is Lisa Elvin Stoltari, and I'm a genealogist and a passionate traveler. Over the last several years, I've been examining Les Filles du Roi, the King's Daughter, and getting to know each and every one of them. There are over 700 of them. We're now on episode 214. We've come such a long way. We've got a long way to go. And we will be examining another Fille du Roi in this episode. But before we begin, let me show you ways you can support the channel. The first three keep you in the know. Subscribe, like, and notify. All of those helps my algorithm, helps you keep current. The next few ways are ways that you can help the channel grow. Patreon and Coffee are standalone platforms where you can contribute financially. And I also have a PayPal button on my website, Have Roots Will Travel. Check that out if that is something you'd like to do. And thank you to all of you who have contributed thus far. So let's get started and find out who our Fille du Roi of this episode is. So the episode 214 features Catherine Guerard, and this was a viewer request. I do not have her in any of my files. So Catherine was born in 1649 in Paris, France. Her parents were Pierre Guerard and Marguerite Mondadel. Her church where she would have been baptized was the Church of Saint-Étienne-du-Mont, and it is found in the 5th arrondissement. It actually contains the shrine of Saint Geneviève, which is the patron saint of Paris. It contains tombs of very famous individuals in Paris history as well. It was completed in 1624, so can you imagine? It was a brand new church when she was born. The 5th arrondissement of Paris is, and remember that Paris is laid out in circles, and it is known also as the Panthéon, and it's situated on the rive gauche, the left bank of the River Seine. It is one of the capital's central arrondissements. It's notable for being the location of the Quartier Latin Quarter, which has nothing to do with being Latin. It's a district dominated by universities, colleges, and high schools since the 12th century when the Sorbonne was created. It's home to some of the most magnificent museums. It's also one of the oldest districts dating back to ancient times, and there are traces of that past in such sites as the Arène de Lutèce, which is a Roman amphitheater, as well as the Therme de Cluny, a Roman thermal bath. So that is, really, really an amazing thing to go there and see how, how it was. I mean, when you're there, our little history of North America pales in comparison. And this bottom picture is what the 5th arrondissement looks like today, or one of the places anyway. So after her father's death, she would sail on the Jean Baptiste and arrive in New France on June 30th, 1669. She was almost 20 years old. She selected, and who selected her? His name? Julien Guillaume Dubar de La Fontaine. He was born about 1636 in Thiviers in France. His parents were Louis Dubar and Catherine de la Bruyère. Now, you can see by the map that it is found in the region of Nouvelle-Aquitaine, the New Aquitaine, and usual because I have not done this particular département or county, as you know, Dordogne. That is where he is from. Let's talk a little bit about this commune of Thiviers. It is about a population of about 2,800, and it dates back from the 11th century, although you can trace some of it back to the Roman times. It was also part of the pilgrimage route, and it became renowned for its churches and 3 castles that existed. One that still exists today, which is the picture you see on the screen on the left. The city was occupied and ransacked several times, beginning with Richard the Lionheart, and then back and forth through English and French rules through the centuries that followed. By the 15th century, it was permanently under French rule. And then it was besieged by the Calvinists of Henri Viscount of Turenne in 1575. So, I mean, this place really has seen a lot of the history of France. And that church is absolutely magnificent. Don't you just want to go and visit it, just kind of feel that aura. And this is where Julien is coming from. So Julien comes to New France on June 18th, 1665, with the Carignan-Salière Regiment. He was with Laforest Company. They were married February 10th, 1670 at Champlain. I do not have a marriage record for them. They would settle down in Champlain. The Champlain municipality lies on the former seigneuries of Marsolet and L'Arbre à la Croix, which were granted in 1644, and the seigneury of Champlain was granted in 1664. So there was a lot, it existed for a long time until it changed hands. The first French occupants of Champlain settled here in really 1664-65. They had tried to settle on land, but the distance from the other settlements and the Iroquois threat really discouraged settlement. And they began to arrive in 1666 and 1667. Some of the first families that came from Trois-Rivières, Desrosiers, Chorel, and Dandonneau, these were among the pioneers, but certainly Julien and Catherine were among the very earliest settling here in Champlain. To have 10 children. Pierre would marry Marie-Claire Raoul and have 8 children, 5 of whom would make it. Maximum would die at age 9. Marie-Antoinette would marry Pierre Houry de La Ferrière and have 7 children, 5 of whom would make it. We have Dominique, her brother, who married Marie-Jeanne Houry, who was the sister of Marie-Antoinette's husband, and they would have 1 child who did survive. She would pass away. He then married Françoise Turcotte and would have 12 children, 6 of whom would make it. Charles would marry Marie Ripaud and have 8 children, 4 of whom would make it. Jean-Baptiste would marry Marie Houry, another part of those other siblings, and have 9 children, 6 of whom would make it. Michel Julien would die at 1 year of age. Danielle, we have no other information. Marie-Madeleine married Alex Turcotte and had 13 children, but only 4 made it to adulthood. Balthazar, don't you love that name, married Marie-Joseph Ripaud and had 4 children, all of whom made it. You can also see the 1681 census where Guillaume, Julien, is listed as a tailor. Catherine, his wife, their children Pierre, Maximum, Etienne, Dominique, see children alive yet, 1 gun, 1 cow, and 10 arpents à valeur, so about 8 acres of land. Julien would pass away first, dying at the age of 59. He and Catherine would have been married 35 years at his death. Away 22 years later at 78. She would leave a remarkable 86 descendants as of 1729. We have more information for you on Guillaume and Catherine. It can be found in volume 8 of our French-Canadian Ancestors. And I've provided the links. And you can go on our Free French-Canadian Ancestors, the Facebook group, and have a look at how you can get that information for yourself. It's a nice little biography. So we haven't run into this situation very often, but the 4 sons actually would end up each establishing their own names, if you will. So Dominique, he would go by Dubois, Pierre would go by La Fontaine, Charles would go by Clermont, and Jean-Baptiste by La Tourelle. So it's interesting to see the descendancy lines and how it evolved, the names evolved. So have a look at that in your tree and see if you can find any of those names. And so here are some of the resources that I use a great deal. We have several resources, one of the ones that I use a lot is Nos Origines. It's a free site, Généalogie du Québec et d'Amérique française. Wonderful site. You can translate it into English by pressing the button to English. Wonderful information, as I said, free to use. You have to make sure that the information is valid. Most of the time, I'm very impressed by the accuracy of that particular website for one that is kind of fed. It's kind of like, in my mind, it's like a Quebec version of WikiTree, because they really do evaluate the sources and that sort of thing. So I would definitely recommend them, and all the rest of those sites, to have a look at your, to do further research for your French Canadian ancestors. So thank you for joining me on episode 214. Catherine was a very, very strong lady who survived almost to the age of 80. So I find the family very much of a pioneer family in Champlain. And we really bless her memory, and we thank her contribution, and we make certain that we honor it. So thank you to the viewer who recommended this particular biography. It was interesting to find out more about her journey and what she undertook. I also want to thank all of my patrons and supporters who are listed here. Thank you for always being there. I also, a special shout out to my patron Shelby, who provided some of the illustrations that you see in some of the more recent episodes that I am now doing. She was very kind to share her work and her artistry with me. So thank you so much, Shelby, and thank you to all of my supporters. I thank you, and I'm grateful that you are there for me. So with that being said, I will see you on episode 215. Until then, au revoir.